Hello everyone. Welcome to Frighten Infy Tales. I know many of you enjoy listening to these videos as you fall asleep. So, before you drift off, I'd love for you to leave a comment letting me know where in the world you're tuning in from. And, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Alright, now let's get comfortable, relax, and dive into tonight's case. Story 1. A tycoon's heir, a president's daughter, a secret child, and a multi-billion-dollar fortune. Ripped apart in a family feud. It sounds like the premise of a Korean drama, but this is no fiction. It's a real-life saga. Today's protagonist is the heir to SK Group, one of South Korea's largest conglomerates, a man who landed in prison twice in his middle years. His devoted wife waited patiently for him through half her life. Yet upon his release, he dove headfirst into an extramarital affair, publicly proclaiming his new lover and a 5-year-old child born out of wedlock. The result, a divorce settlement of astronomical value. On a micro level, this is an elite family's internal struggle. But on a macro scale, it could send shockwaves through South Korea's economy. Let's dive into the divorce dubbed Asia's most expensive. On March 31st, 1961, Rose So-young was born into a prestigious family that inspired envy across South Korea. Her father, Roh-woo, was a titan in the nation's political sphere. Rising from humble roots, he climbed relentlessly to become president, a political grand slam by any measure. The year 1985 marked a turning point for Rose So-young. Her father ascended to the chairmanship of the ruling Democratic Justice Party, poised to assume the presidency. That same year, at age 24, she traveled to the United States to study at the University of Chicago. It was there she met the man who would define her destiny. Cho Tae-won. Cho Tae-won was no ordinary man. He was the son of Cho Jong-hyun, chairman of the Sungkyong Group, now SK Group, one of South Korea's most powerful chaebol families. Founded in 1953, SK stood alongside Samsung, Hyundai, and LG as a cornerstone of Korean industry. Rose So-young and Choi Tae-won, two of South Korea's brightest heirs, met far from home, instantly drawn to each other and swept into a passionate romance. By all accounts, Choi was a fervent suitor. During winter breaks, when university dining halls closed, he cooked for Rose So-young himself. He showed his care through thoughtful gestures, always attentive to her needs. The couple played tennis together, often living a blissful student life that could spark envy in anyone. Their romance kindled abroad, united two hearts from Korea's most influential dynasties. With love flourishing, marriage became inevitable. In 1988, as Roh won the South Korean presidency, the relationship between Rose So-young and Cho Tae-won gained official sanction. In September that year, they held a private wedding at the Blue House, South Korea's presidential residence, officiated by the Prime Minister. After their marriage, they welcomed 3 children. Yet beneath the seemingly romantic and idyllic wedding lay a reality steeped in strategy. Both families belonged to Korea's uppermost echelons, forming an alliance too weighty to ignore. No matter how you viewed it, this was no simple love match. At the time, South Korean media and prominent commentators openly noted that the union epitomized the deep ties between government and chaebols. Some even criticized it as a marriage of Politics and commerce. Why such assertions? As early as November 1980, SK Group stunned the business world with a deal that shook South Korea. The acquisition of the state-owned Korea National Oil Corporation, a behemoth far larger than SK at the time. Korean media called it the shrimp swallowing the whale. Rumors swirled that the deal's success owed much to Roh Woo, then National Security Commander. He allegedly intervened in the bidding process, adjusting rules to let SK acquire UC at a price far below market value. Following this coup, SK Group entered a phase of meteoric growth. By the early 1990s, as South Korea's economy surged and the government urged conglomerates to expand, SK, bolstered by the Roh family's political clout, solidified its dominance in energy and boldly ventured into strategic sectors like telecommunications, chemicals, and semiconductors, cementing its status as a pillar table. In 1998, Choi Tae-won officially took the helm of SK Group while maintaining its core businesses. He aggressively expanded into new territories, notably investing heavily to acquire Lone Entertainment, the company once home to K-pop star Oh. This move not only strengthened SK's industrial dominance, but also marked its entry into South Korea's booming cultural and entertainment sector. By then SK Group had risen to become South Korea's third largest chaebol, trailing only Samsung and Hyundai. But just as SK reached its zenith, Roh Woo, Choi's father-in-law, faced a catastrophic fall. On November 16, 1995, Roh Woo was investigated and arrested in a political purge campaign. He faced charges of amassing and embezzling illicit political funds. Prosecutors revealed he had accumulated illegal assets worth $1.125 billion, a staggering sum that shocked the nation. A year later, the Seoul District Court sentenced him to 22 years and 6 months in prison, a harsh verdict reflecting South Korea's resolve to clean up its political landscape. Yet, reality often outstrips even the wildest K-drama plot lines. In December 1997, the Asian financial crisis erupted, plunging South Korea into chaos. To stabilize society, President Kim Dae-jung issued an amnesty for 1,500 prisoners, including Roh Woo. The former Titan served just over a year before calmly walking out of prison and returning home. Though Roh Woo was freed, the scandal dealt a crushing blow to his daughter, Roh So-young. Once a noble eyes, she was now branded the daughter of a corrupt politician facing relentless public scorn. To shield her husband and SK Group from the fallout, she chose to retreat from the spotlight. While other heiresses attended lavish galas, Roh quietly embraced the roles of beautiful wife and mother, raising their 3 children and ceding the stage to her husband as he built his empire. Thanks to the foundations laid by his father-in-law, Chaewon steered SK Group smoothly, its growth largely unscathed by his wife's family turmoil. We cannot say with certainty whether Cho Twan's initial pursuit of Rose So-young was driven purely by love. What is clear, however, is that by this point, his treatment of her began to reflect self-interest. With his position secure and his wife's family in decline, he grew increasingly absent, leaving child-rearing almost entirely to Roh. Within SK Group, she held no formal role or influence. Gradually, she faded into the background of her own marriage, marginalized in both family and career. By 2000 to outsiders, Rose So-young appeared to embody the archetypal chaeable wife, tending to children, managing the household, and making obligatory appearances at family events. But in reality, her life had quietly veered onto a new path. With their children growing up, and her marriage to Cho Tae-win reduced to a formality, the couple began living separately. Rose So-young refused to let her life revolve solely around family. On December 1, 2000, she stepped out of her gilded cage and took the role of director at the NA6 Art Center located on the 4th floor of SK Group's Siren building in Seoul's Jongho district. From then on, the titles Ro Iris and Choi's wife gave way to director Ro. It seemed like a fresh start for her career and life. But sadly, this golden period lasted only 3 years. In 2003, Cho Tae-win found himself entangled in legal troubles. Sentenced to 3 years in prison for illegal stock trading and embezzlement. Absent in good times, he turned to Rose So-young first when crisis struck. Once again, she stepped up, navigating a storm of challenges, running between contacts, pulling strings, and leveraging relationships to mitigate her husband's sentence, all while fending off a barrage of negative media coverage. Most heartbreakingly during this turbulent period, their youngest son was diagnosed with juvenile diabetes, a chronic condition requiring lifelong insulin injections. By day, Ro shuttled between courtrooms and prisons. By night, she kept vigil at her son's bedside. Those years ground her down, reality crushing her spirit time and again. Yet, with unwavering resolve and extraordinary strength, she held her family together. But does sacrifice always bring reward? After his release from prison, Kro Ten resumed his self-serving ways, maintaining the separation from his wife without a hint of gratitude or remorse for the woman who had shouldered every storm during his darkest years. In 2009, fate dealt Rose So-young another crushing blow. She was diagnosed with breast cancer. Shortly after surgery, doctors delivered devastating news. The cancer had spread to her lymphatic system. The once poised and elegant director Ro became frail. Her face pallid, her eyes heavy with grief and exhaustion. In this period, Rose So-young all but extinguished any hope in her callous husband. She poured her dwindling strength into her health. And running the Navy Arts Center, refusing to waste another moment on the man who had forsaken her. But in an unforeseen twist in 2013, Choi Tae-win found himself behind bars again. This time for embezzlement, sentenced to 4 years in prison. Though her heart had long grown cold, Ro, bound by duty to her family and children, stepped up once more. She lobbied tirelessly, pulling every string to secure aid. Thanks to her efforts and a clemency policy under President Park Geun-hye, Choi served a mere 6 months before striding out, brimming with bravado as if untouched by scandal. One might have hoped that 2 stints in prison would jolt him into reflection. Instead, the opposite unfolded. He not only shunned his family but flaunted his extramarital affair with brazen disregard. Reports suggest Cho Tae-win's affair began in 2010 during his separation but before any divorce. In a letter to Rose So-young, he formally requested a divorce, citing irreconcilable differences spanning over a decade. He claimed their marriage had grown cold and that by chance he had met a woman who offered him true comfort, sparking dreams of a new life. While admitting he should have sought divorce Before starting the affair, he excused his inaction, stating he concluded by expressing a desire for an amicable end to the marriage, promising to compensate Roe and their children for their pain. Notably, Choi publicly acknowledged his out-of-wedlock child, vowing to fulfill his duties as a father and support the child's mother. He declared, "These words might seem noble, but in the context of Roe So-young's years of raising 3 children alone, like a living widow, while he lived freely with his mistress, such moral posturing rings hollow, stirring bitterness and outrage." Predictably, the letter's release ignited a firestorm across South Korea. Beyond widespread condemnation of Choi as a faithless husband, the public's curiosity fixated on one question: who is this mistress who could so thoroughly captivate a seasoned steely tycoon, clouding his judgment and driving him to demand her elevation to wife? Choi even proclaimed, naturally, South Korea's Sherlock Holmes sleuths didn't rest. Within days, the woman's identity was laid bare. Her name was Kim Hyang, born in December 1975 in Seoul to a middle-class family. At 17, she moved to Illinois, USA for studies, adopting the name Chloe. In 2002, she married a Korean American, had a son, and gained U.S. citizenship. In the following years, she was active on Sealed, a popular South Korean social platform, sharing glimpses of a contented family life as a quintessential middle-class wife and mother. But fate took a sharp turn. Cracks formed in her marriage, and by 2008, she and her husband divorced. She left with little but secured custody of her son. Divorced, a single mother, and forging a new path, Kim Hyang faced a turbulent turning point. It was then that she returned to South Korea. Officially, she met Cho Tae-won at a private gathering in the summer of 2008. But whispers in elite circles tell a more dramatic tale. Rumors claimed that as early as 2003, during Choi's first prison term for illegal stock trading, Kim appeared at a prison counseling program as a therapist. Both parties vehemently denied this connection. Yet, aligning the timelines, an earlier covered bond cannot be ruled out. Picture it: a Chaeable air-confined and conflicted and a gentle, empathetic therapist skilled at listening. In the vulnerable, cloistered prison environment, emotions like loneliness, pity, or dependency could easily spark. By 2008, Kim, freshly divorced and emotionally adrift, crossed paths with Choi again at a private event. He, burdened by business pressures and a fractured family, was equally unmed. Their shared vulnerabilities ignited a connection, and their entanglement was hardly surprising. In 2010, Kim Hyang secretly gave birth to Choi's daughter in Hong Kong. From then on, South Korea's elite quietly dubbed her the Hanamong Lady, a nod to the affluent Seoul neighborhood where she resided. In rare leaked photos, Kim didn't exude glamour or hot. Instead, she embodied a serene, healing elegance, soft features, subtle makeup, a gentle smile, radiating calm femininity. Perhaps it was this unpressured, non-competitive aura that ensnared Choi, a battily hard-ardeen tycoon, offering him solace. By late 2015, with their daughter reaching school age, Choi, in his words, found courage in love. Through World Journal, he published a 3-page letter admitting his years-long affair, acknowledging his daughter, and formally requesting a divorce from Rose So-young. The timing, however, was impeccably calculated. Why, 2015. Beyond the difficulty of concealing his daughter, a critical factor emerged. South Korea had just repealed its law criminalizing adultery. Previously proven infidelity could lead to a 2-year prison sentence. With the law relaxed, Choi dropped all pretense, boldly announcing his divorce demand that very night. In truth, he had privately pressed for divorce multiple times, but Roe had consistently refused. According to Hank Ura, the letter's public release aimed to leverage media and public pressure to force Rose's consent. That same night, Roe responded via an interview with Cookman Ililbo. "I don't want a divorce," she said. "I'll do everything to protect my children and family." Her quiet, desperate words stood in stark contrast to Choi's Sicherin ode to his true love. Roe appeared fragile, yet resigned, even shouldering the blame, saying, "It's my fault for not understanding his feelings, for hurting him." Astonishingly, she offered to raise her husband's daughter with his mistress, clinging to their hollow marriage. At this point, many might feel indignation, exclaiming, "Why won't she divorce him? Why hold on to a betrayer like that?" But Rose's refusal wasn't rooted in lingering love. She was clear-eyed, employing a temporary strategy. Her aging parents were frail, and she feared a divorce would be a fatal shock. More critically, she held no shares in SK Group. A hasty divorce would leave her with nothing, jeoparding her children's future. Parents who love their children plan for the long term was her guiding principle. Until her children's futures were secured, divorce was not an option. Kim Il-young, however, lacked such in 2017. She and Choi co-founded the TNC Foundation named after them both. Kim began flaunting her philanthropy and took on the directorship of Jeju's No Museum. Choi, eager to legitimize Kim as his partner, filed for divorce mediation with Seoul's family court in July 2017. On November 15, the first mediation session failed when Roe did not attend. The court escalated the case to formal litigation, scheduling a trial for February 2018. The proceedings remained private, but the outcome revealed Choi's failure to secure the divorce. Undeterred, Roe Il-young prepared her counter-offensive. Her first step scrutinized Choi's assets. Divorce was possible, but only with a fair division. Though Kim claimed to love Choi, not his wealth, Roe equipped she'd take the money. Enlisting a legal team, she analyzed South Korea's asset division laws, SK Group's financial operations, and Choi's potential tactics to conceal wealth. SK's vast fortune with complex share structures and subsidiary ties demanded precision to ensure her rightful share. Simultaneously, she fortified her children's futures. Eldest daughter, Cho Eun-young, after graduating from Beijing International School in 2008, studied biology at the University of Chicago. She researched at Chicago's Brain Science Institute, interned at Harvard's Physical Chemistry Lab, and joined SK Group's Biotech division in June 2017, rising to a part-time strategy manager. Second daughter, Choi Min-young, excelled at Payne University in Business Administration, graduating in 2014. She voluntarily enlisted in South Korea's Navy, a rare move for a chaeable Aries, earning the rank of lieutenant. In 2019, She joined SKH Confluence Semiconductor Research at SK Hynix, focusing on international trade and policy coordination. Youngest son Choi and-giant graduated from Boston College in Physics in 2018, joined Boston Consulting Group, and later SK's Energy division via open recruitment. With her children's careers secured within SK, Ro could focus on her counterattack. On December 7, 2019, Ro filed a counter lawsuit, agreeing to divorce, but demanding a division of Choi's assets, including 42.39% of his SK Group shares valued at approximately $1.18 billion US. She also sought a court order barring Choi from transferring SK-related assets and requested $272,727 for emotional damages. These demands rattled Choi and SK as the asset split could strip him of his majority shareholder status, risking a power struggle. Ro argued that SK's growth owed much to her father, Ro Woo, and her family's contributions warranted a substantial share. Choi countered that the wealth stemmed from generations of his family's efforts. Questioning Rose's contributions and the scale of her demands, the dispute transcended a mere divorce, evolving into a power struggle among Korea's elite. Yet, a mother's decades of toil raising 3 exceptional children single-handedly cannot be erased with a claim of no contribution. And let's not forget who secured Choi's release from prison twice. South Korean media weighed in. Outlets like Young-ilbo expressed sympathy for Ro's counter-lawsuit, viewing her as a victim forced to fight back after years of preserving her family. Conversely, Chosun-ilbo and others criticized the public spectacle, arguing Rose's demands were excessive and hinted at a power grab. Public sentiment largely favored Ro, decrying Choi's infidelity and harsh treatment as morally unjust. The narrative of the wife's revenge gained traction, becoming a societal flashpoint. This divorce commands attention because while a family matter on the surface, SK Group, South Korea's second-largest conglomerate, significantly impacts national GDP. Even minor shifts in its power structure could disrupt capital markets, supply chains, and economic stability. Throughout 2020, Korean courts urged Ro and Choi to pursue mediation. But with the divorce a national sensation, could a quiet resolution still be possible? Ro So-young stood firm on her demands while Cho Tae-win insisted that SK Group shares could not be divided, offering only a cash settlement far below her expectations. The legal battle dragged on for years with no clear resolution. This grueling war of attrition persisted until August 18, 2023, when the court finally issued a preliminary ruling. The court officially granted the divorce between Ro So-young and Choi Tae-win. More significantly, it declared Choi primarily at fault for destroying the marriage, citing his years of infidelity and the physical and emotional suffering inflicted on his wife. While Ro won the moral victory in determining who was responsible for the marriage's collapse, her triumph and asset division was less absolute. The court rejected her claim to SK Group shares, reasoning that they constituted a special inheritance of the Choi family, not marital property, subject to equal division, but a legacy tied to their lineage. Despite Rose's tireless efforts in raising their children, maintaining the household, and nurturing social connections, the court noted she had no direct role in SK Group's operational decisions. Contributions and share ownership, it ruled, were distinct matters. Furthermore, the court emphasized that dividing SK shares would alter the conglomerate's power structure, impacting not just the Choi family, but also the stability of South Korea's economy. Thus, the shares remained intact, but Ro was awarded a cash settlement, $51.15 million for asset compensation and $76,923 for emotional damages. In essence, she could not claim the shares, but would leave with a substantial sum and her dignity intact. Neither party was satisfied. Ro felt the ruling was unjust, while Choi deemed the compensation excessive, arguing it would strain his ability to support Kim Hyang and their daughter. His legal team called the decision unreasonable and biased. In 2024, after paying $3.31 million US in legal fees, both Ro and Choi faced off again in a new round of litigation. This time, Ro made concessions, dropping her demand for SK shares, but revising her cash compensation request. She raised her claim from $1 billion US to $1.54 billion US and increased the emotional damages demand to $2.31 million. These staggering figures escalated the asset battle into an ever more harrowing saga. Some lawyers questioned whether the court's conflation of Choi's infidelity with Rose's lack of involvement in SK's operations skewed fundamental principles in family law. They argued that divorce and asset division are separate issues. Why should her non-involvement in corporate management diminish her entitlement? Public sentiment, however, rallied behind Ro. Since the divorce became public in 2015, she had endured a decade-long struggle. Her resilience earned widespread respect and admiration across South Korea. No longer the submissive wife or a sideline figure, Ro So-young emerged as a symbol of tenacity and courage. Dubbed the lone lioness, the term lone isn't entirely accurate, as her 3 children stood steadfastly by her side. Throughout the ordeal, they offered not only emotional support, but also decisive action. Each child submitted letters to the appellate court expressing unwavering support for their mother, urging her to fight on fearlessly and demanding fair compensation. On May 30, 2024, the court issued its second preliminary ruling. It ordered payroll So-young $1.06 billion in assets and $2 million for emotional damages. The divorce saga finally drew to a close. Facing the media after the verdict, Ro could not conceal her emotions. 30 years of marriage ended like this. She said, "It's truly heartbreaking that our family and private matters have caused such public concern. I feel deep regret and shame. I always believed a family is not a contract but a covenant. And honoring that covenant is what sets humans apart from animals." She did not shy away from addressing Kim Hyang, the woman who shattered her family, declaring, "Those who destroy others' families must face responsibility and consequences." This became South Korea's costliest divorce in history. As the final ruling landed, society reeled under the glare of reporters' flashes. In the solemn air of the courtroom, and before the watchful eyes of the public, the marriage of Ro So-young and Cho Twan officially ended. Kim Hyang immediately after the verdict, transferred funds to Ro and retreated to a quiet life, avoiding the spotlight. Over time, she appeared unaffected, her Instagram posts revealing a serene existence, seemingly moving past the turmoil to embrace a happy new chapter. By 2025, the latest reports indicated that Kim Hyang and her daughter with Cho Twan had settled into adulthood. Kim adopted a boy with Birdman syndrome, reportedly to model positive values for her daughter through charity. Her son with Choi recently changed his surname to Choi, becoming Cho Twan's second son. The saga of the mistress continued to spark debate. Once, figures like Kim faced harsh criticism from Korean netizens when caught or posting on Instagram. Now her mistress' dreams had materialized, posing by luxury cars, mingling at elite galas. Some even mocked her as the SK lady, suggesting her ambitions had come true in Theki Bowl world. Post-divorce, Ra So-young's life transformed dramatically. She re-emerged with a bold new image, swiftly reclaiming public attention. Her children thrived in their careers. On October 13, 2024, her second daughter, Choi Min-jang, married a Chinese American military officer in a ceremony attended by South Korea's chaebol and political elite. The eldest daughter now serves as deputy director of SK's biotech division, while the youngest son has risen to a managerial role at SK's U.S. branch. One could argue that Rose So-young shines brighter post-divorce than she ever did in her husband's shadow. No longer Cho Twan's wife, she has courageously stepped forward, crafting a new narrative unbound by the ghosts of her past. Story 2. Now we're diving into a chilling crime that has just unfolded, shaking a place synonymous with joy and relaxation. Pattaya, Thailand. Located about 150 kilometers from the vibrant capital of Bangkok, a roughly 2-hour drive, Pattaya's name in Thai evokes a poetic image, the monsoon wind blowing from the southwest. Few know that in its origins, Pattaya was merely a quiet, unassuming fishing village. Its transformation began during the Vietnam War when it became a favored rest and recuperation hub for American officers. Recognizing its tourism potential, the Thai government invested heavily, turning this humble village into an international resort destination. Pattaya quickly gained fame for its stunning beaches, affordable fresh seafood, and, most notably, its electrifying nightlife. Along its bustling streets, you'll find tantalizing street food stalls, relaxing massage parlors, lively bars, and discreet hourly motel. While the sex trade is technically illegal in Thailand, authorities often turn a blind eye, allowing this smokeless industry to flourish. Today, Pattaya is renowned as a red light district, drawing millions of curious visitors from around the globe each year to experience its unique allure. But beneath this glitzy, vibrant facade, a horrific crime occurred just last week, shattering the festive atmosphere and exposing the dark underbelly of this tourist paradise. The central figure in today's tragic tale is Warren and Penakaya, a resilient transgender woman from Thailand. Born in a tranquil northern village, Warren, and was the youngest child in her family with an older brother and sister. Old photos reveal that before transitioning, Warren and was a slight unassuming teenager. I couldn't find specific details about when Warren and decided to transition. But after embracing her true identity, she adopted the name Mina, a name affectionately used by those closest to her. After graduating high school, Mina opted not to pursue higher education. Instead, she studied Mandarin, dreaming of job opportunities in Taiwan. She spent 2 years working diligently on the picturesque island, saving a substantial sum. Upon returning to Thailand, Mina took up work in Pattaya. Jobs that, given the city's reputation, you can likely imagine. To enhance her confidence in beauty, Mina underwent multiple cosmetic surgeries. She visited a Bangkok hospital at least 3 or 4 times, with her most recent procedure in January 2025. Mina's striking appearance earned her admiration from clients. Through relentless hard work, she saved at least 10,000 baht monthly, approximately $280. A devoted daughter, Mina avoided lavish spending, instead sending her savings to her parents' account, providing crucial financial support to her family. Thanks to Mina's tireless efforts, her parents built a comfortable home in their village valued at 2 million baht, about $56,000. To her family and friends, Mina was kind-hearted, approachable, gentle, and polite. She cherished her family deeply, often sharing her dreams of saving enough to take them on trips to beautiful destinations like China and Europe. Tragically, no one could have foreseen that. Just after celebrating a joyful Sran festival with her family in mid-April, a mere 10 days later, Mina would fall victim to a gruesome massacre that extinguished her dreams and hopes. On April 26, 2025, Phaya police received an urgent call reporting the discovery of human body parts in a rented apartment in this coastal city. Officers rushed to room 201 on the second floor of the apartment complex. Though the room appeared clean and orderly at first glance, stepping into the bathroom revealed a horrifying scene, a nightmare that would likely haunt the officers for life. A person had been brutally dismembered. Through the testimony of a 61-year-old hotel cleaner who reported the crime, police gathered critical initial details. She recounted that between 1 and 2 a.m. on April 26, while working on the first floor, she heard loud noises from above, followed by sounds of a struggle and a woman's desperate cries for help. Her instincts told her something was wrong, but fear held her back. She briefly considered calling the police, but hesitated, convincing herself it was just a lover's quarrel that would resolve itself. When the noises upstairs fell silent, the cleaner drifted into an uneasy sleep. Upon waking in the morning, still gripped by unease, she decided to report the incident to the hotel manager. When she and the manager opened room 201T pretense of a cleaning check, the ghastly scene in the bathroom left them both in shock. By reviewing the guest registry, police quickly identified the room's renter as Futong Yuan, a Chinese tourist. He had checked in the previous day, April 25, paying 3,600 baht, about $100 for a 6-night stay. Futong Yuan, born in 1983 and now 42, hails from Hub province and works as a welder with no prior criminal record. Immigration records show this was his 4th visit to Thailand. His first trip was with a tour group, but subsequent visits were solo, suggesting familiarity with Phaya. Notably, he chose the same hotel for the stay as he had during previous visits. Security footage from the hotel captured Futong Yuan leaving the premises hours before the body was discovered, carrying a large backpack and a black plastic bag. His whereabouts afterward remain unclear for now. Recognizing Futong Yuan as the prime suspect and the risk of his fleeing Thailand, Phaya police swiftly entered his details into their system and issued a nationwide manhunt. This straightforward yet effective measure paid off almost immediately. Just hours later, at 1:45 p.m. that same day, good News arrived from Suobomi International Airport. Fuang Yuan attempted to pass through an automated security gate, but the police warrant triggered an alert. Visible scratches on his face further drew the attention of airport security, leading to his apprehension. Paya officers promptly arrived to escort him back to the station for interrogation. A swarm of reporters from various outlets gathered at the airport, cameras trained on the suspect. Facing a barrage of questions in Chinese and English, Fu Tongyuan remained silent, head bowed, offering no response. After completing necessary paperwork, police began interrogating him with the aid of an on April 27, 2025 Fuang Yuan, dressed in a discreet pink outfit, was escorted by heavily armed police to 4 key locations to reenact his crime. These locations were: first, the bus terminal where he arrived in Paya; second, a 20-baht fixed price shop where he purchased the tools used in the crime; third, the beach near South Paya's walking street where he first met the victim, Mina; and finally, room 2, A1 of the hotel, the site of the horrific crime. While following news coverage of the case, I wondered why Fu Tongyuan was made to wear a motorcycle helmet during the escort. The answer soon became clear. Overwhelmed by grief and rage, Mina's father could no longer contain himself. He suddenly rushed forward, striking Fuang Yuan's head with a soda bottle. The helmet protected the suspect from injury, but the force of the swing caused the father to lose his balance and fall to the ground. During interrogation, Fu Tongyuan confessed that he had arrived in Thailand by plane 3 days before the crime on April 23, 2025. 2 days later, on April 25 at 11:30 a.m., according to the timestamp on the hotel's exterior surveillance camera, which was 45 minutes behind, making the actual time 12:15 p.m. Footage captured Fu Tongyuan strolling down the street carrying a backpack and a plastic bag. After wandering for about 40 minutes, he returned to the hotel and checked in at 12:52 p.m., roughly an hour later. Around 1:50 p.m., Fu Tongyuan visited a nearby barber shop where the surveillance camera's poor quality made identification difficult. Pointing to a male model's hairstyle posted on the wall, he told the barber, "Cut it like this." Reporters later interviewed the barber, who served Fuang Yuan that day. She recalled that the customer requested a short trim on the sides, while leaving the top untouched. After the haircut, before leaving, Fu Tongyuan used his phone's front camera as a mirror, carefully inspecting his new style from every angle. Satisfied, he paid 100 baht, about $2.80, and left. The barber also shared with reporters that she was familiar with Mina, the striking transgender woman. Mina and a few other girls frequently appeared in the area. A friend of mine speaking to the barber after the crime revealed that Fu Tongyuan had initially contacted another girl online, agreeing on a price of 5,000 baht, approximately $140. However, when he saw the girl's appearance via video call, he was dissatisfied, noting a stark difference between her photos and reality. The girl promptly refunded the 5,000 baht he had paid up front. In hindsight, she was extraordinarily fortunate to escape tragedy. Leaving the barber shop, Fu Tongyuan returned to the hotel via a motorcycle taxi. He then visited a massage parlor next door, inquiring about beautiful girls. The female employee seemed to grasp his intent immediately, suggesting he try his luck in the nearby area. During their brief exchange, Fu Tongyuan occasionally glanced inside the parlor, perhaps contemplating a traditional Thai massage. Reporters also interviewed a small shop owner near Paya Beach, where Mina often spent time. The owner recalled seeing Mina and Fu Tongyuan talking on the afternoon of April 25. As mentioned earlier, Mina had worked in Taiwan and was fluent in Mandarin, allowing seamless communication with Fu Tongyuan. The shop owner noted that Mina typically strolled the beach with 3 or 4 friends, primarily to attract tourists. Slender young women like Mina were particularly popular with visitors from Asian countries. During their conversation that afternoon, Mina and Fu Tongyuan showed no signs of conflict. After exchanging contact information, Fu Tongyuan left the beach. Based on this, police deduced that the two connected via WeChat at the agreeing on a price of 8,000 baht, about $224, for services at the hotel room scheduled for later that night. At 9:14 p.m., hotel surveillance footage showed Fu Tongyuan leaving the premises, carrying only his mobile phone and now wearing a blue shirt instead of the white one from earlier. His destination was a nearby 20 baht fixed-price store. Just 9 minutes later at 9:23 p.m. store cameras recorded him purchasing 6 items, 2 rainbow pattern bags of different sizes, several clear plastic bags measuring roughly 20 centimeters x 30 centimeters, 2 large black garbage bags, and the critical weapon in this case, a pair of scissors. Contrary to initial reports of yellow-handled scissors, the checkout footage clearly showed Fu Tongyuan buying curved blade scissors with 1 red handle and 1 yellow. The total cost was $348 baht, about $9.70. Paid in cash. By 10:14 p.m., Fu Tongyuan returned to the hotel and called Mina to arrange her visit. Just past 11 p.m., he left the hotel again. At the same time, Mina arrived outside via motorcycle taxi. Exterior cameras captured Fu Tongyuan greeting her, and she followed him into the hotel. Together, they ascended to room 201 on the 2nd floor. What truly happened next in that fateful room? Based on police interrogations, the events of the crime can be summarized as follows. Past 11 p.m., Fu Tongyuan welcomed Mina into the room. They had communicated via WeChat and finalized the price at 8,000 baht. After Mina arrived, they undressed in the bathroom and showered. Afterward, Mina sat on the bed. She demanded payment and Fu Tongyuan paid in cash. However, a dispute arose when Mina was uncooperative. During a struggle, she pushed Fu Tongyuan to the ground. A physical altercation ensued. Fu Tongyuan claimed he demanded half the money back and told her she could leave, but she refused. He said he felt cornered and attempted to force himself on her, which she fiercely resisted. In a fit of rage, Fu Tongyuan strangled Mina and struck her head with his elbow. When he realized she was no longer breathing, he dragged her body to the bathroom using both hands. He cleaned blood from himself and her body, then used a wet bed sheet to wipe blood from the floor. Using the scissors, he cut into the victim from her lower abdomen to near her throat. He removed her heart and placed it on her body. He also extracted 2 silicone implants, placing one on her left side and the other on her right. After the act, Fu Fuang Yuan washed blood from his hands, rested, and slept on the bed. He claimed that removing the heart and implants was an impulsive act inspired by movies and driven by curiosity. He denied any intent to retaliate upon learning Mina was transgender, insisting he was unaware of this beforehand. After the crime, he booked a flight for just after 7 a.m. Despite the dismembered body nearby, he tried to rest on the bed, though he admitted to being terrified. He confessed to purchasing cable ties and plastic bags together, revealing that his intent in buying these items was to commit the crime. After brutally killing Mina, Fuang Yuan claimed he briefly cleaned the crime scene before resting for a few hours. Around 7 a.m. on April 26, he woke up and quickly purchased a flight ticket from Bangkok to Kunming, Yunnan Province, China. The flight China Eastern Airlines MU742 was scheduled to depart at 3:55 p.m. and land in Kunming at 7:25 p.m. that same day. After securing the ticket at approximately 7:45 a.m., hotel surveillance footage captured Fu Tongyuan leaving the premises. A backpack slung over his shoulder and a black plastic bag in hand. He casually crossed the street to hail a taxi. At 7:53 a.m., he approached a roadside taxi driver locals affectionately called Uncle Wanderer. The driver, startled by visible scratches on the stranger's face, assumed he had been in a recent fight. Fu Tongyuan, limited by his poor Thai, used his phone to show the destination and requested a ride. Uncle Wanderer, unable to understand Mandarin and already waiting for a pre-booked passenger, declined. Just then, a motorcycle taxi emerged from an alley. Uncle Wanderer waved the driver over and introduced Fu Tongyuan. After a brief haggle over the fare, at around 7:55 a.m., the motorcycle taxi whisked Fuang Yuan away. Later, he told police the driver took him to Bell Travel Service in North Paya. There, he purchased a bus ticket to Suvarnabhumi Airport for 143 baht, about $4, and waited over half an hour for the 9 a.m. departure. At the airport, Fu Tongyuan lingered in the terminal. With his flight set for 3:55 p.m., he waited until about 2 hours before takeoff to attempt passing through the automated security gate, where he was promptly apprehended. In the wake of this horrific crime, Mina's family invited a revered local monk to room 2011 to perform a blessing ceremony, hoping to guide her soul to peace in the afterlife. Per Thai tradition, the deceased should be laid to rest as soon as possible. The day after the crime, Mina's father, accompanied by a hearse, brought his daughter's remains back to their village. Heart-wrenching cries echoed through the small community as villagers condemned the killer's cruelty and expressed profound sorrow for the kind-hearted Mina's tragic fate. Some even loudly demanded the harshest legal penalty, death. For the temple monk had once predicted that in her 60th year, she would face a calamity and lose something precious. In hindsight, she wondered if this tragedy was fated. Mina's father, his face etched with grief and eyes red from crying, told reporters he was consumed by sorrow and anger over the immense loss, but knew life must go on. He was trying to accept this cruel outcome. He also revealed that police had returned Mina's mobile phone, but he hadn't yet found the strength to examine its contents. His priority was ensuring a proper funeral so Mina's soul could find eternal rest. This gruesome murder has become one of the most widely reported and shocking cases in recent Thai media. Some criticism has been directed at the hotel cleaner with claims that had she acted decisively and called police that night, Mina might have survived. In fairness, however, her suspicion and subsequent report to the hotel manager the next morning played a pivotal role. Without her actions, Tong Yuen might have boarded his flight and escaped. Shortly after the crime, a TikTok video surfaced showing a group of transgender women discussing Mina's tragedy. Notably, one woman, Rita, was stunned to realize that a man who had contacted her days earlier for services was none other than Tong Yuen, the cold-blooded killer now dominating headlines. Rita felt both shocked and immensely fortunate for declining the transaction, as it could have been her, not Mina, who met a tragic end. The authenticity of Tong Yuen's alleged contact with Rita and the video's veracity, whether factual or a ploy for views, remains unconfirmed by authorities. I urge everyone to approach such information critically and cautiously regarding Tong Yuen's true motive for killing Mina. Social media is rife with speculation. He claimed to police that during their transaction, Mina abruptly refused to continue, prompting him to demand a partial refund. When she refused, a physical altercation erupted, leading to the murder. However, based on available evidence, his account appears to be a blatant fabrication. First, Mina arrived at the hotel around 11 p.m. But 2 hours earlier at 9 p.m., Tong Yuen had purchased scissors, cable ties, and plastic bags at a store, a clear indication of premeditated violence. When pressed by police, he shamelessly argued that these items were for daily use, even claiming the scissors were for self-defense. This absurd excuse is laughable. Who buys scissors for protection? Second, he stated at the scene that Mina had showered and lay on the bed. If she truly refused the service, would she have gone through those actions? A more plausible theory based on the evidence is that Tong Yuen initially didn't realize Mina was transgender. After she showered, he discovered this and attempted to back out of the transaction. Mina's refusal sparked a heated argument, while his purchase of crime tools suggests premeditation. Other evidence indicates he may not have been fully committed to such a heinous act upon arriving in Thailand. First, he applied for a Thai tourist visa TR type, which allows multiple entries and visits over 5 years, with stays up to 180 days each. As a Chinese citizen, he could have entered Thailand visa-free for 30 days. Applying for a long-term visa suggests he genuinely enjoyed Thailand and considered extended stays. If his sole intent was a depraved thrill killing, a 30-day visa-free entry would have sufficed. No need for a complex visa. Second, he bought his flight ticket after killing Mina. Had he meticulously planned the crime, he likely would have secured a ticket in advance and fled immediately. His last-minute booking indicates either a lack of foresight, believing he wouldn't be caught so quickly, or that the murder was a spontaneous act. A central mystery in this case is the whereabouts of Mina's left lung. Official autopsy reports remain unpublished, but while her right lung was intact, her left lung was missing from the crime scene. This detail leaked to the media before Tong Yuen was brought to identify the scene. Police specifically asked Tong Yuen whether beyond the silicone implants and heart he removed any other organs. He insisted only those things, but reporters and the public remained skeptical. Wild rumors have since proliferated, each more sensational than the last. Some claim Fu Tongyuan admitted his crime was inspired by films and TV shows, leading to speculation that he knew of the infamous Jack the Ripper case or had watched horror classics like The Silence of the Lambs. Given that he disemboweled the victim, many believe he may have emulated Dr. Hannibal Lecter and consumed Mina's left lung. Others point to surveillance footage showing Fuang Yuan carrying a black bag when leaving the hotel for the airport, suspecting the lung was inside. Some even allege he was involved in organ trafficking, selling the lung on Thailand's black market. A widely circulated image of black market organ prices claims a human lung can fetch over 9 million baht, about $252,000. Surpassing the value of livers, kidneys, or eyes. Amid growing speculation, Thai police issued an official response regarding the missing lung. They confirmed that no human organs were found in Fuang Yuan's backpack when he left for the airport. It contained only 2 bottles of mineral water, some clothes, personal items, Mina's phone, and approximately 80,000 baht, about $2,240 in cash, far from the rumored 9 million baht. Given his 6-day hotel booking, this amount aligns with typical travel expenses. Police firmly stated that the case has no connection to organ trafficking. The investigation is ongoing and official autopsy results will take over a month to release. They urged the public to avoid baseless speculation that could incite panic. Story 3. A serene morning in Cairns, a picturesque coastal city in Australia, was shattered by the acrid stench of chemicals emanating from the house at 19 Chapel Street. Few could have imagined that this seemingly ordinary residence was the scene of one of the decade's most barbaric crimes. Klaus Andreas, a man nearing 70, brutally murdered his wife, Chow Yiping, before callously using 6 dealers of concentrated acid to dissolve her remains, attempting to erase all traces of his deed. Even more chilling in the days that followed, he carried on with chilling nonchalance, even sending an email to his mistress with the casual remark, "The good news is she's no longer here." His seemingly perfect crime nearly went undetected until a neighbor happened to notice something peculiar spilling from a tipped-over trash bin on the street. The Klaus Andreas case not only left Australia in shock but also served as a harrowing wake-up call about the dark undercurrents of unhappy marriages and hidden desires masked by a veneer of normalcy. Just how ruthless can a person become? And could crime truly disappear as he had hoped? Cairns, a charming city nestled in Australia's tropical northeast, is often likened to a vibrant oasis. It captivates visitors with the majestic beauty of the Great Barrier Reef and the lush abundance of its rainforests while offering a multicultural community that makes it an enviable place to live. Cairns also bears the deep historical imprint of its Chinese community. From the 19th century, Australia's gold rush drew waves of Chinese immigrants to this region. At one point, making up a third of Cairns' population. The story we're about to explore today is a case that rocked the Chinese community in Cairns in 2011. Though no longer as numerous as in its heyday, the Chinese community in Cairns remains tightly knit. So when Luing Mei couldn't her close friend Xiaoling for days on end, a knowing sense of unease began to take hold. Tiao Liping, born on February 8, 1969, in China, had been living in Cairns for over 5 years by 2011 at the age of 42. A Sociable woman, she found solace in gatherings with fellow Chinese expatriates where shared language and culture eased the loneliness of life in a foreign land. Though she and Luing Mei didn't meet frequently, they made a habit of catching up over the phone every few days. But this time, a week had passed with no word from Xiao Liping. Calls went unanswered, messages unreturned. Alarmed, Luing Mei visited Xiao Liping's home, only to find no sign of her friend. Her unease growing, Luing Mei and her husband went to the police the next day to report Xiao Liping's disappearance. Upon receiving the report, Karen's police launched an urgent investigation. Xiao Liping's social circle in Karen's was relatively small, limited to a few close friends. Her only family in the city was her husband, Klaus André. Klaus André, born on May 13, 1943 in Germany, married his first wife, Monika Andres, in 1967. A year later, they welcomed their son, Ralph André. In 1982, Klaus's life took a dramatic turn when his family left Germany for a brighter future in distant Australia. Life in their new home unfolded quietly. Ralph grew up to become a federal police officer before transitioning to a role in customs. It seemed happiness would last forever, but in 2005, tragedy struck. Klaus's beloved wife, Monika, succumbed to cancer, a devastating blow after nearly 4 decades together. The loss left Klaus, now in his later years, grappling with profound loneliness and an unfillable void. In his grief, he turned to online chat rooms as a way to ease his sorrow and connect with new people. It was there that fate led him to Xiao Liping, a 37-year-old Chinese woman. At the time, Xiao Liping was living in China, reeling from a failed marriage and raising a child alone. Life as a single mother was fraught with challenges, and she too sought solace in the virtual world. Two lonely souls found each other, their connection growing through emails that gradually blossomed into deep affection. Yet, the thousands of miles between them, a language barrier, and a 26-year age gap posed daunting challenges, leaving outsiders skeptical about the viability of their online romance. Klaus, however, was undeterred. One day, he resolved to bridge the divide, proposing a trip to China to meet Xiao Liping in person. And so, he set foot in the land of a billion people. What transpired during that fateful meeting, how long they spent together, remains shrouded in mystery. What is known is that shortly after Lo's trip to China on October 12, 2006, Xiao Liping made a bold decision to follow him to Australia, a land entirely foreign to her. On November 26, 2006, less than a month after their life-changing encounter and barely a year after meeting online, Klaus and Xiao Liping became husband and wife. Their whirlwind marriage raised eyebrows, but to Xiao Liping, Klaus was a kind and attentive husband. Undeterred by the whispers about their old husband, young wife dynamic. Mindful of his wife's language barrier, Klaus enrolled her in English classes. In a city where personal transportation was essential, he supported her in obtaining a driver's license. Financially, he shouldered most of the household expenses, ensuring Xiao Liping's material needs from daily meals to personal items were met. In June 2009, the couple purchased a $450,000 Australian dollars, approximately $300,000 US at 2025 exchange rates. Home at 19 Chapel Street in Karensbrunn neighborhood. The spacious 700-meter property, complete with 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a pool, and an outdoor barbecue area, seemed a testament to Tiao Liping's comfortable and happy life in Australia. A life enriched not only by material security but also by a loving husband. So what could have caused Xiaoling to vanish so suddenly? And does her husband Klaus hold any answers to this baffling disappearance? With these questions swirling, the police decided to visit 19 Chapel Street to speak with Klaus. When questioned about his wife's disappearance, Klaus claimed that over a week earlier, in late October, he and Tiao Liping had a heated argument after she accused him of infidelity. Following the dispute, he said, Xiaoling packed her bags and left the house without a word. Klaus insisted this wasn't the first time she had walked out. He described frequent conflicts over money and trivial matters that had strained their marriage. According to Klaus, Tiao Liping had stormed off 2 or 3 times before, after similar arguments. On one occasion, she even removed and returned all the jewelry he had given her. Yet, each time she safely returned, and they reconciled. The police didn't entirely dismiss his account, as it was theoretically plausible. But this time, Tiao Liping's absence stretched on abnormally long. Moreover, for a woman like Tiao Liping, who had lived in Karens for only 5 years and primarily socialized within the Chinese community, to vanish from the city without a trace seemed highly improbable. A glaring question loomed. If his wife had been missing for days, why hadn't Klaus, even if unconcerned, reported it to the police? Though Klaus naturally became the prime suspect in this mysterious disappearance, the police's top priority remained finding Tiao Liping, clinging to the faint hope of a miracle. A press conference was swiftly organized and details of Tiao Liping's disappearance were shared publicly, aiming to appeal to anyone who might hold vital clues. As the missing woman's husband, Klaus attended the press conference. Yet his demeanor and behavior starkly contrasted with the expected anguish of a man whose wife had vanished. A discrepancy so pronounced it was impossible not to arouse suspicion. Instead of the haggard, anxious expression typical of a distraught spouse, Klaus displayed an unsettling calm, even indifference, as if he were a bystander. Throughout the event, a strange smirk lingered at the corners of his mouth, and he occasionally traded quips with reporters. The most jarring moment came when Klaus twice held up a photo of Tiao Liping for the cameras, each time flashing an awkward, chilling smile that sent shivers down spines. As the press conference ended, he casually laughed and chatted with backstage staff as though the person being sought wasn't his own wife. These bizarre behaviors didn't escape the seasoned investigators. Inspector Bradley McLeese, leading the missing persons case, had already begun to suspect Klaus based on initial reports. According to Luing May's statement to the police, when she visited the house looking for Tiao Liping, only Klaus was there. When she inquired about her friend's whereabouts, Klaus nonchalantly replied that Tiao Liping had returned to China days earlier. More disturbingly, he brusquely dismissed Luing May, saying, "This doesn't concern you. Please leave." Another friend of Tiao Liping's, Li Ju, also visited after failing to reach her for days. Klaus gave Li Ji the same story, insisting his wife had gone back to China. Even more telling, before Li Ji left, Klaus handed her a brand new iPhone that Chia Lighting had recently purchased. Claiming it was a spare phone his wife had left behind. He asked Li Ji to change the system language from Chinese to English. These troubling details, combined with Klaus's odd behavior at the press conference, cemented his position as the top suspect in the police's investigation. In any missing persons case, tracing the victim's last known actions is critical. By analyzing communication records, the police uncovered a vital clue. Tiao Liping's phone. On the evening of October 30, 2011, she had accessed the for a brief 19 minutes. Tragically, the last recorded sign of her activity. Beyond that fleeting connection, telecom data revealed no further leads. Stymied by the lack of communication clues, the police shifted focus to another avenue. Tiao Liping's bank transactions. This move proved to be a pivotal breakthrough, a glimmer of hope in the case's darkness. Inspector Bradley discovered that on November 2, Tiao Liping's Commonwealth Bank card was used to withdraw cash from an ATM. Most modern ATMs are equipped with surveillance cameras, and the machine in question was no exception. When the police retrieved the footage from the transaction, Klaus's face appeared unmistakably on the screen. Irrefutable evidence. From there, a covert surveillance operation was launched, tracking Klaus's movements after the withdrawal. Just over an hour and a half later, at around 1:30 p.m. that same day, Klaus was spotted at a Bunnings Warehouse hardware store in Cairns. Minutes later, he approached the checkout with a cart carrying 2 large containers holding a total of 20 liters of concentrated hydrochloric acid, a highly corrosive substance, a terrifying tool. Further investigation unveiled a chilling truth. Klaus hadn't visited Bunnings only on November 2. Records showed that on October 31, he had also been to the store using Tiao Liping's bank card to purchase another 20 L of hydrochloric acid. In just 3 days, Klaus had secretly amassed 60 L of concentrated acid, all paid for with the money of his mysteriously missing wife. This horrifying discovery sent chills through the investigative team. A near certain premonition that Tiao Lighting had fallen victim to an unspeakable crime. With their seasoned expertise, they knew such a vast quantity of highly corrosive acid wasn't needed for routine cleaning at a crime scene. Only one purpose could justify such a staggering amount: to dissolve something large and extraordinarily difficult to destroy. As the investigation reached this critical juncture, the police summoned Klaus for questioning. The moment he entered the interrogation room, palpable anxiety etched his face. When investigators revealed they had surveillance footage of him using his wife's card to buy acid, Klaus leapt to his feet, vehemently denying it. "That's not me. You've got the wrong person." But when the undeniable video was played, Klaus faltered, stammering that the man looked like him. He then offered a flimsy explanation, claiming he bought the acid to clean dirty trash bins at home. Over the grueling 4-hour interrogation, Klaus's statements unraveled, riddled with inconsistencies and contradictions. Yet, the seasoned investigators didn't rush to expose his lies. Instead, they patiently observed every gesture, every word in the performance he was desperately trying to maintain, waiting for the perfect moment to deliver a decisive blow. As Klaus grew exhausted from dodging their probing questions just when Klaus thought he had regained control, the investigators dropped a bombshell. They had obtained a search warrant, and a police team was already scouring the house at 19 Chapel Street. Upon entering, officers were immediately overwhelmed by a pungent chemical odor permeating the air, particularly in the garage. Inside the home, they discovered a shrine dedicated to Claus's first wife, Monica, containing an urn with her ashes. A shocking and gruesome find emerged from that seemingly innocuous urn. Tal Leaping's phone and familiar jewelry were hidden among the ashes. In another concealed corner of the house, investigators found a container holding over 10 liters of concentrated hydrochloric acid. Yet, despite these physical clues, the team still hadn't located any direct evidence of Tal Leaping's body. Just when the case seemed to hit a dead end, Rhonda, a neighbor living next door to Klaus, provided a crucial lead, a statement that could completely shift the trajectory of the investigation. On November 7, while recovering at home, Rhonda, Klaus's observant neighbor, witnessed a suspicious scene. She saw Klaus struggling to push a large trash bin from the garage to the curb. Perhaps due to its weight, he stumbled, causing the bin to topple, spilling its contents across the street. Rhonda described with horror a thick pinkish liquid oozing along the curb before trickling into a nearby storm drain. Immediately after, Klaus frantically sprayed the area with a hose to wash away all traces. Not overlooking this alarming detail, the police promptly inspected the storm drain in front of 19 Chapel Street. Beneath layers of mud, they uncovered a chilling find: 6 human teeth, and an unidentifiable murky liquid. Using a specialized robotic probe, they discovered 4 more teeth scattered in nearby sections of the sewer. Forensic analysis later delivered a grim confirmation. All 10 teeth were ceramic dentures belonging to Chow Leaping. Yet, a haunting question lingered. Could concentrated hydrochloric acid truly erase a human being entirely? To test this horrifying possibility, forensic experts from the Queensland Police in collaboration with pathologist Dr. Bottrall conducted a gruesome experiment. They used 2 pigs, each weighing approximately 50 kilograms, roughly Chow Leaping's weight, and submerged them in 50 L of concentrated hydrochloric acid. One container was left undisturbed, while the other was stirred daily for 7 days. The results after a week revealed a terrifying truth. The pig in the uneared container had dissolved by 50 to 75%, leaving only a few small fragments. In contrast, the pig in the stirred container had completely disintegrated, reduced to roughly 300 g of residue. The experiment proved with chilling certainty that with regular stirring, concentrated acid could fully dissolve hair, teeth, bones, and every trace of a body within a week. With this irrefutable evidence, the police reached an inescapable conclusion. Klaus was responsible for Chow Leaping's mysterious disappearance and had nearly succeeded in erasing his crime from existence. An arrest warrant was executed immediately, and Klaus was denied bail. Yet, one question continued to haunt investigators. What motive? What deep-seated resentment could drive a man nearing 70 to so brutally kill his 42-year-old wife and use acid as a ghastly tool of concealment? Through meticulous interviews with couples' acquaintances, the veil over the motive began to lift. Before Klaus and Chow Leaping married, Colin, a friend of Klaus, had warned him, relaying advice from a Chinese acupuncturist. Some Chinese women marry foreigners solely for citizenship and financial gain, not genuine love. At the time, Klaus dismissed the caution, steadfastly believing in Tiao Liping's affection. In the early days of their marriage, their life was indeed filled with joy and tenderness. But marriage cannot thrive on fleeting emotions alone. As the sheen of novelty faded, underlying issues surfaced. By mid-20, Klaus confided in friends about the growing chill in their relationship. Not only was their intimate life strained, but Xiao Liping seemed to retreat into the Chinese community, showing little interest in integrating into local society. Neighbors frequently overheard heated arguments between the couple, often about money. These escalating disputes, simmering with unspoken tension, planted seeds of doubt in Klaus about his hasty marriage. On July 25, 2011, Xiao Liping returned to China to visit family and have dental work done, leaving Klaus alone in Australia to grapple with his turmoil. On August 12, at a lively casino in Cairns, Klaus met Saran Rat, a Thai woman visiting her brother. Despite an almost complete language barrier, an inexplicable attraction sparked between them, igniting Klaus's illicit affair from that moment. Before Saran Rat returned to Thailand on September 4, the two secretly met multiple times at the home Klaus shared with his wife. During this brief period, Klaus gave Saran Rat 2 rings as a pledge. Even after she left Australia, he maintained contact through emails, professing his love and vowing to marry her. Yet he candidly admitted there was an obstacle to remove his lawful wife, Xiao Liping. 10 days later, on September 14, Xiao Liping returned to Cairns. Unaware of the betrayal, with a woman's keen intuition, she soon sensed something amiss in her husband's behavior. Her suspicions didn't escape Klaus, deepening the already fractured tension in their strained marriage. 6 weeks later, on the fateful day of October 30, Xiao Liping drew her final breath. In a chilling confession, Klaus claimed that during a fiery argument that day, he pushed her forcefully, causing her to fall and die instantly. That night, he callously slept beside her lifeless body in a haze of detachment. The very next day, October 31, he sent a heartless email to Saran Rat, coldly stating, "I have good news for you. She's no longer in my house." After 754 grueling days in custody, Klaus finally faced justice in court. His defense attorney attempted to frame the incident as an accident. On October 30, 2011, after discovering Klaus's affair, Xiao Liping lost control, leading to a violent argument. In her rage, she allegedly scratched his face and attacked him with a fork. Klaus claimed his push was self-defense, never anticipating the fatal fall. Panicked and fearing legal consequences, he didn't report it to the police. But prosecutor Nigel fiercely dismantled this narrative, exposing Klaus as a deceitful and cunning liar. He challenged, if it was truly an accident, why did the defendant conceive the horrific plan to dissolve the victim's body with acid? More outrageously, after casually purchasing acid on October 31, Klaus strolled along Karen's esplanade and bought an ice cream, a chillingly callous act. Ji Xiao Liping's close friend also testified, unveiling a darker scheme. She recounted that on October 29, just one day before Xiao Liping's death, she visited the couple's home. There, Xiao Leiping showed her a suspicious letter she'd found in an address to Austria's Welfare Contact Center, requesting the transfer of Chia Leiping's welfare payments to Klaus. Crucially, handwriting analysis proved the letter wasn't written by Chao Leiping. The signature was forged. After her death, Klaus brazenly presented this letter to authorities to claim the benefits. This evidence revealed that Chia Leiping's death was no spontaneous accident, but a meticulously planned murder. Klaus's motives were not only his desire for his mistress, but also greed, targeting the financial benefits tied to his ill-fated wife. Despite his stubborn insistence that it was a tragic mishap, the jury of 9 men and 5 women, after carefully weighing the ironclad evidence, unanimously declared Klaus guilty of murder. His fitting sentence was life imprisonment with the earliest possibility of parole in 2028, a penalty many deemed too lenient for his heinous crime. Reflecting on the case, it's clear that chance played a significant role in uncovering the truth. Had Chao Leiping not traveled to China for dental work, her body might have vanished without a trace. Had Rhonda not been home recovering and witnessed Klaus's disposal attempt, the case could have stalled indefinitely. A single heavy rain might have washed away all evidence. The latest development came on June 16, 2023, when Queensland's parole board sparked controversy by allowing Klaus, now 80 and grappling with serious health issues, to apply for early parole. Earlier on October 13, 2013, just 2 months before Klaus's murder trial began, his cruelty and arrogance provoked fellow inmates, leading to a brutal assault. The attack left him with permanent damage to his hearing, vision, and spine. As of now, no official announcement confirms whether Klaus has been granted parole or released. Has he quietly rejoined his family? Or will he at 82 spend his remaining years behind bars, burdened by his sins? The answer remains uncertain. The child-leaping Klaus Andre's case ranks among Australia's most shocking criminal cases of the 2010s. It's not merely a personal tragedy, but a stark warning about trust, cultural misunderstandings, and the risks of relationships marked by age and social disparities. It also underscores the critical role of forensic science and community vigilance in solving crimes. The case sparked countless questions from the public, media, and experts in law and sociology, probing not just the crime, but broader issues of ethics, social policy, and human psychology. Story 4. In November 1986, the bustling hum of a convenience store in Perth was shattered by a piercing scream for help. A young girl, nearly naked, stumbled inside, gasping for breath and crying out in panic, "Please, someone help me." At first, onlookers assumed it was a case of simple assault. But as she recounted her ordeal, the darkest chapter in Australian criminal history began to unravel. At 3 Morehouse Street, a seemingly ordinary couple had turned their home into the stage for some of the most horrific crimes imaginable. 4 young women vanished without a trace until one escaped, exposing a terrifying truth. Within that house, love had been twisted into a tool for murder, a manipulative predator, a woman blinded by devotion, and a series of atrocities that left Australia reeling. The perpetrators would later be dubbed Australia's most sadistic killer couple. Their heinous acts sparked nationwide outrage, with citizens demanding the reinstatement of the death penalty to see them hanged. So, what exactly happened that year? Let's travel back to 1986 to unveil one of the most chilling cases in Australian history. Perth, the capital of Western Australia, sits at the country's western edge, flanked by the deep blue Indian Ocean on one side and vast, endless desert on the other. It's known as the City of Light and Serenity. With over 300 sunny days a year, averaging 8.8 hours of sunlight daily, Perth boasts the most sunshine of any Australian capital. Its alluring beaches and pristine wilderness draw thousands of tourists and immigrants annually. For years, Perth was celebrated as one of Australia's safest cities, where residents lived carefree lives along the Indian Ocean coast. But that tranquility shattered in the autumn of 1986 when, in the span of just 1 month, 4 young women vanished without a trace. Initially, police paid little attention, assuming the women were simply out with friends. But as the number of missing persons grew, the cases took on a sinister, puzzling air. The first victim was Mary Nielsen, a 22-year-old psychology student at the University of Western Australia. Beautiful and brilliant, Mary was an exemplary student beloved by teachers and peers alike. Her parents, both educators, lived in an upscale apartment. Despite her privileged upbringing, Mary was humble and hardworking, taking a part-time job at a fast food restaurant. She was the quintessential model daughter. On October 6, 1986, Mary attended a university seminar. After finishing her shift at work, she hurriedly left and no one saw her again. Her parents were vacationing in England at the time, so her absence went unnoticed initially. When teachers and friends realized she'd been missing for days, they alerted the police. However, the local authorities were dismissive, assuming Mary had run off with a boyfriend or gone on a spontaneous trip, a common occurrence in their eyes. Days passed with no word from her. When police began to grow suspicious, an officer stumbled upon Mary's car parked in the lot directly outside the police station. This only reinforced their belief that she'd simply gone off somewhere. Why else would her car be parked so conspicuously? The case was hastily shelved. But just 2 weeks later, another young woman vanished. Susanna Candy, a 15-year-old star student at Hollywood High School, came from a wealthy family. Her father was a renowned ethologist in Western Australia. Bright, charming, and kind-hearted, Susanna was fiercely independent, insisting on working part-time despite her father's protests that it was unnecessary. This led to frequent arguments between them. On October 20, 1986, Susanna disappeared. After school, her frantic parents searched tirelessly but found no trace of her, eventually reporting her missing to the police. As authorities prepared to investigate further, the Candy family received 2 letters, one postmarked from Fremantle, a nearby tourist spot. In the letters, Susanna claimed she was safe, just spending a few days with friends and would return soon. The police, after reviewing the letters, concluded it was a typical case of a teenager running off and closed the investigation. Yet soon after, a third woman went missing. Nolene Patterson, a 31-year-old golf club manager, was a former flight attendant of 10 years. Elegant, tall, and strikingly beautiful, she was adored at the club, often called a goddess by colleagues. On November 1, 1986, Nolan left work as usual, but never made it home. Her family, after a fruitless search, reported her missing. By now, Perth police finally recognized the gravity of the situation. 3 women disappearing in mere weeks was no coincidence. But before the investigation could gain traction, a 4th woman vanished just 4 days later. Denise Brown, a 21-year-old vibrant and outgoing young woman, loved dancing and socializing at bars in her free time. On the night of November 5, 1986, after drinking with friends at a bar, Denise didn't return home. Instead, she called her parents saying she'd be staying with friends for a few days. Terrifyingly, that was the last time anyone heard her voice. Denise's parents reported her missing, noting that during the call, her tone and words seemed unnatural, laced with fear. They were convinced something was wrong. By this point, police realized all 4 missing women, aged 15 to 31, were unrelated, but shared one trait: striking beauty. Suspecting a serial abductor targeting attractive young women, Perth police launched a citywide search. The 4 disappearances became a media firestorm, dominating headlines and spreading fear throughout the community. Authorities urged vigilance, especially among young women, advising them not to travel alone and encouraging tips from the public. Despite their efforts, the investigation stalled. Then a breakthrough came unexpectedly. On the evening of November 9, 1986, a young woman, panicked and nearly naked, stumbled into a small suburban Perth shop, begging the owner for help. "Save me! I've been kidnapped!" she screamed. The shopkeeper immediately called the police. Minutes later, officers arrived and took the girl to the station for questioning. Her name was Kate Moyer, a 17-year-old. After being given water and calmed, she began recounting her harrowing ordeal. "Last night, as I was walking home, a couple pulled up beside me in a car. They seemed so friendly. The woman smiled and said, 'It's dark out. Want a ride?' Thinking they were kind strangers, I got in without hesitation. They introduced themselves. Her name was Eileen. His was James. They said they just finished work, but suddenly the car turned down an unfamiliar road, and James held a knife to my throat, coldly saying, 'Stay quiet or I'll kill you.' I froze in fear, unable to resist as they drove me to a strange house. They forced me to call home and say I was safe. During the call, I said, 'I've been drinking and will sleep at a friend's,' hoping my mom would notice something was off since I never drank. But she didn't. After the call, I shakily asked James, 'Are you going to hurt me?' He laughed and said, 'If you behave, we won't do anything.' That night, they made me strip and dance, then forced me to watch Rocky with them. Afterward, James raped me while Eileen watched the entire time. When it was over, they gave me sleeping pills and handcuffed me to a bed. I didn't swallow the pills, hiding them under my tongue and spitting them out under the mattress once they were asleep. The next morning, when James left, I started talking to Eileen, trying to seem friendly to lower her guard. We talked about everything: family, work, love. Gradually, she relaxed and even uncuffed me. I secretly tucked a small note into the corner of their VCR, scribbling my name, address, and phone number with a few symbols. Then, someone knocked at the door. Before leaving to answer it, Eileen warned coldly, "Stay quiet or I'll send you to heaven." As soon as she left, I scanned the room and spotted an unlocked window. Holding my breath, I quietly opened it, climbed out, and ran for my life until I reached the shop to beg for help. Kate's story horrified the police. Initially, some officers doubted her, suspecting she might be fabricating the tale. But as she provided more details, they realized the severity of the situation. Kate added that while talking to Eileen that morning, she saw a newspaper on the table with an article about Denise's disappearance. Eileen glanced at it and remarked coldly, "A grown woman like that can't take care of herself." Before laughing gleefully, Kate immediately sensed something was terribly wrong and believed Denise was also a victim of this couple. Kate provided another critical detail. "I saw a bottle of pills with the name David John Burney on it. That might be the real name of the man calling himself James." At the mention of David's name, the faces of veteran officers hardened. They knew him well, a notorious street bandit who about a decade earlier had been a thorn in their side. Alongside a woman named Catherine, he'd committed dozens of thefts, frustrating police efforts to catch them. Now they had reason to believe David and Catherine Burney were behind these chilling disappearances. David John Burney was born on February 16, 1951 in Perth. Raised in a poor and dysfunctional family as the eldest of 5 children. His childhood was a relentless series of hardships. His father, often ill, was unable to provide for the family, while his mother, impatient and addicted to alcohol, was abrasive and cruel. She frequently hurled venomous words and sometimes lashed out physically at her children. From a young age, David scavenged in dark corners for food, and any lapse in watching his younger siblings brought harsh consequences from his mother. This brutal environment, coupled with prolonged trauma, twisted David's psyche, setting him on a path toward inevitable ruin. Catherine Margaret Burney, born on May 23, 1951, in Perth, fared no better. She lost her mother before she could even call her name. Her father refused to care for her, passing her to her grandfather, who also rejected her. From then on, Catherine grew up like a homeless child, shuffled between relatives like an unwanted burden. This unstable life left her withdrawn, isolated, and without a single true friend. When David was 12, his family moved near Catherine's home. 2 children bearing similar emotional scars quickly found solace in each other, becoming one another's anchor. 2 lost souls in the darkness clasped hands, sharing unspoken pain. At 15, David dropped out of school and began working at a racetrack. There he started showing disturbing tendencies, abusing animals, and indulging in bizarre urges to expose himself inappropriately in public. The tipping point came one night. When masked and naked, he broke into his landlord's home with illicit intentions toward an elderly woman. This cost him his job and plunged him into poverty. With no income, David turned to theft, and due to their close bond, Catherine was gradually drawn into his crimes. On June 11, 1969, the pair was arrested for stealing property worth nearly $3,000. The investigation uncovered multiple prior thefts, leading to 11 charges of breaking and entering. As Catherine was pregnant at the time, the court showed leniency, granting her a suspended sentence. David, however, was sentenced to 9 months in prison. After his release, rather than reforming, they resumed their criminal ways. Just 1 month later, on July 9, they were arrested again for 9 more thefts. This time, David received a 3-year sentence. On June 21, 1970, David escaped prison and reunited with Catherine. Together, they embarked on a new spree of misdeeds. When apprehended on July 10, they faced 53 charges, including theft, unauthorized vehicle use, and unlawful entry. David was sentenced to 2.5 years, while Catherine received 6 months. Their newborn child was taken into welfare custody. From then on, police mockingly dubbed them the reckless duo for their brazen crimes, hoping this stint would set them straight. After Catherine's release, her father pleaded with her to change, even securing her a nanny job to stabilize her life. Unexpectedly, the employer's son, Donald, fell deeply in love with her at first sight. Initially uninterested, Catherine was gradually won over by his sincerity and persistence. They married on May 31, 1972. Their marriage brought relative happiness. Catherine gave birth to 7 children and their life seemed to settle into a steady rhythm. Meanwhile, David, after his release, married a kind woman. They lived harmoniously and had a daughter named Tanya, but tragedy struck. During a delivery job, a heavy object fell on David's head. No one knows exactly which part of his brain or nerves was affected, but afterward he changed completely, becoming volatile, paranoid, and obsessively needing a woman's presence. If his emotions went usurped into uncontrollable rants, David began cheating on his wife repeatedly, even bringing an underage girl home without shame. Unable to endure it, his wife took their daughter and left. At the same time, Catherine's life was unraveling. Her husband lost his job, sinking into despair. She alone supported their family, caring for an unemployed husband, 7 children, and an aging father. The crushing pressure left her exhausted. In that moment, David reappeared, locking eyes with her and asking, "Will you come with me?" After nearly a decade apart, 2 broken souls reconnected. Perhaps disillusioned with her current life or drawn to the one person who'd shared her darkest days, Catherine nodded without hesitation. In 1985, Catherine called her ex-husband Donald, calmly stating she wouldn't return. She and David moved into 3 Morehouse Street in the Perth suburb of Willoughby. Though they never legally married, Catherine took David's surname, calling herself Mrs. David and living as his wife. Their life appeared to stabilize. David worked as a car mechanic at a nearby garage, while Catherine took odd jobs to cover expenses. To outsiders, they were a couple with a troubled past, striving to reform. But had they truly left the darkness behind, or were they the reason 4 young women vanished? Police swiftly descended on 3 Morehouse Street to investigate. From the outside, the house was eerily quiet, showing no signs of anything amiss or anyone being held captive. The team set up surveillance nearby. Soon, Catherine returned and was promptly arrested. Fearing other victims might still be inside, police searched the house. In the master bedroom, they found chains, handcuffs, and sedatives under the mattress. Inside the VCR, alongside a rocky cassette, was a small, carefully hidden note. The plea for help from Kate, one of the abducted girls. These findings corroborated Kate's account, confirming she'd been held there. Tragically, no trace of the missing women was found. David was arrested at his garage, and both were taken to the station for questioning. When asked about Kate and the other missing women, the couple gave conflicting, contradictory statements. Catherine insisted she'd never met Kate. David, however, claimed Kate had willingly gone with them, even implying an intimate relationship initiated by her and shared drug use. Regarding the other missing women, David shook his head, denying any knowledge. Despite hours of intense questioning, both remained defiant, refusing to confess. As tension in the interrogation room reached a boiling point, an investigator played a psychological gambit, casually stating, "We found them." Unexpectedly, this rattled David. He looked up, sighed softly, and murmured, "All right, I'll take you to the place." No one knows what prompted his sudden shift, but David and Catherine then led police to the sites where the victims' bodies were hidden. 3 women, Mary, Susanna, and Nolan, were found in Glen Eagle, southeast of Perth. The 4th, Denise, was buried in a plantation in Wayne, north of the city. Throughout the process, both David and Catherine remained chillingly detached, even smug, as if relishing the attention and infamy. Catherine callously approached one burial site, spat on the ground, and said, "She's there, dig." Her flippant words sent shivers through everyone present. In subsequent interrogations, the killer couple finally confessed to their crimes. It all began with David's warped desires, cravings Catherine alone couldn't satisfy. Gradually, his gaze turned to innocent strangers. On October 6, 1986, Mary was heading to a seminar when her car broke down. Stopping at David's garage to fix a tire, she was unaware she'd entered a fatal trap. Captivated by her beauty, David concocted a story about having better, cheaper tires at his home and invited her to come get them. Trusting him, Mary followed. From that moment, she was in the hands of a monster. After overpowering her, David brutally killed her. When burying her, he stabbed her body to speed up decomposition. To mislead investigators, he deliberately parked her car near the police station to create confusion. Catherine wasn't merely a bystander. She was an active accomplice driven by blind devotion to David. She'd do anything to please him. Emboldened by not being caught after the first murder, they grew reckless, meticulously planning their hunts. Each afternoon, the shadow couple cruised for young women alone, offering rides to lure them. Once a victim was in the car, Catherine would signal with, "I'm hungry for something." That was David's cue to act. He'd brandish a knife, beginning a harrowing ordeal of psychological and physical torture. To delay concern from victims' families, they forced them to write reassuring letters, claiming they were just away for a few days. After writing her letter, 15-year-old Susanna endured savage torture. David drugged her into unconsciousness, then ordered Catherine to kill her as proof of loyalty. Blinded by love, Catherine complied without hesitation. When asked why she willingly became an accomplice, her chilling response stunned investigators. I wanted to test how strong my heart was. It was as I expected. I felt nothing. I was ready to follow him to the ends of the earth, no matter what, to satisfy his desires. However, Catherine's fervent devotion to David wavered with the third victim, Nolan. When Nolan's car ran out of gas after work, she encountered the demonic couple. Using their usual ruse, they abducted and held her for 3 days. But during this time, David developed feelings for Nolan, even saying, "She's so elegant, so beautiful, the perfect woman." His words enraged Catherine. She threatened him, "Get rid of this wretched woman, or I'll end my own life." Unwilling to lose his loyal partner, David killed Nolan. When burying her, Catherine, still seething, cursed and threw sand in her face. Soon after, they targeted their fourth victim, Denise, using the same method. This time, David's brutality shocked even Catherine. While burying Denise, he struck her head with an axe. She collapsed but struggled to rise. David swung again, blood splattering everywhere. The horrific scene haunted Catherine, who began having nightmares. She started questioning their path. When they abducted their fifth victim, Kate, Catherine's compassion stirred. She deliberately left a window unlocked, giving Kate a chance to escape. At least that's what she claimed. Police remained skeptical, suspecting she was lying to lessen her guilt rather than acting out of remorse. On November 12, 1986, David and Catherine were formally charged with 4 counts of murder and multiple counts of abduction as they were escorted to Fremantle Magistrates Court. An enraged crowd surrounded the building, forcing police to deploy a large force to maintain order. Facing the prosecution's accusations, both remained silent. On February 10, 1987, the first trial began at the Supreme Court of Perth. Crowds gathered outside vociferously demanding the reinstatement of the death penalty to see the demonic couple hanged for their horrific acts. During the proceedings, Catherine exhibited sudden signs of mental instability. In the courtroom, she erupted into screams, cursing, spitting, scratching, kicking, and even biting like a cornered animal. Yet bizarrely, whenever she was near David, she calmed instantly, as if under a spell. Even as the prosecution read the charges, she showed no reaction, merely sitting behind David, gently stroking his thumb. Psychiatrists testified that Catherine suffered from the most severe case of dependent personality disorder they had ever encountered. David was her entire world. At his command, she would unquestioningly carry out any act: arson, abduction, torture, even murder. Both were sentenced to life imprisonment, but Catherine's trial was delayed due to her psychiatric evaluation. On March 3, 1987, after a thorough mental health assessment, Catherine was deemed fully sane and capable of standing trial. She too received a life sentence. Under Western Australian law at the time, life imprisonment required a minimum of 20 years before parole eligibility. Given the case's brutality, the court issued an order prohibiting David and Catherine from contacting each other, even by phone. Throughout the investigation, police suspected the couple's involvement in additional disappearances, such as Cheryl's in May 1986, Barbara's in June 1986, and another case from 1980. However, due to insufficient evidence, these cases remained unresolved. After sentencing, David was incarcerated at Fremantle Prison. There he was ostracized and attacked by fellow inmates, forcing authorities to isolate him for his safety. In prison, David received mixed reviews. Some saw him as a model prisoner, polite, disciplined, and even tending to injured animals. Others believed his malevolent nature remained unchanged. A male inmate with intellectual disabilities accused David of assaulting him in prison, later receiving $73,000 in compensation. Catherine was held at Bandandy-Up Women's Prison, Western Australia's highest security female facility. There, she worked as a librarian and even performed in a prison production of Sister Act. Like David, she elicited conflicting opinions. Some viewed her as gentle and harmless, even writing letters to children. However, the officer who arrested her was convinced she felt no remorse for her victims or their families. He described her as cold, calculating, and self-serving, a skilled actress, always manipulating to achieve her goals. Indeed, Catherine befriended other notorious female inmates, showing no regret and even sharing criminal tactics. In her first 4 years of incarceration, Catherine wrote over 2,600 letters to David, openly expressing her obsessive, frenzied love for David. Prolonged isolation and unmet physical needs took a toll, plunging him into severe depression. His condition worsened after his computer was confiscated for accessing illicit content. In the early hours of October 7, 2005 at Casuarina Prison, David hanged himself with a bed sheet, dying at age 54. Upon hearing that Catherine wept uncontrollably, begging to attend his funeral, a request denied. Under Western Australian law, life prisoners become eligible for parole review every 3 years after serving 20 years. Catherine was no exception. However, on March 14, 2009, under intense pressure from victims' families, Western Australia's newly appointed Attorney General, Christian Porter, placed Catherine on the never-to-be list, making her the third woman in the state's history to face permanent imprisonment. Despite this, the 3-year parole review process remained a procedural formality. In 2016, Kate, the sole surviving victim, publicly called for changes to Australian law, urging the abolition of automatic 3-year parole reviews for life prisoners. She told the media, "Every 3 years, I hear she's up for parole. It's torture. It forces me to relieve the nightmare, causing irreparable harm." Remarkably, Catherine's youngest son supported this reform. In 2017, he publicly opposed his mother's parole, stating, "I endured her abuse multiple times. Her horrific reputation has led to a lifetime of attacks and stigma for me." Tanya, David's daughter from his first marriage, remained unmarried and childless into middle age. When asked why, she replied simply, "I don't want the world to have another David Burney." The crimes of David and Catherine cemented their infamy as Australia's most notorious serial killing couple. The house at 3 Morehouse Street, where these horrors unfolded, was once a pariah in the community. Locals avoided it, some even taking detours to bypass it. Over time, however, memories faded. Years later, the infamous house was sold for $425,000. Though money changed its ownership and its interior was fully renovated, the surrounding community could never forget the atrocities committed within its walls. Story 5. This photo of a young boy hugging a police officer became one of the most viral images shared around the world during the Black Lives Matter protests. And if you live anywhere near Washington state, chances are you've heard of that same boy, a member of the so-called Heart Tribe. This family made waves on Facebook, constantly posting photos of what looked like a happy blended home. 2 smiling moms and 6 adopted black children. People praised them for their activism, their unity, and their picture-perfect moments that seemed too good to be true. But nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared the world for what came next. What looked beautiful on the surface would soon reveal something far darker underneath. It's one of those stories that reminds us just how deceiving appearances can be and how even the most heartwarming images can hide a heartbreaking truth. They portray this happy little family, and yet the night before their daughters telling us please please please, begging us not to make her go back and that they are abusing her, and then Devontae coming over here and telling us that he's being starved to death. The family they were talking about was the Hart family, the same ones we mentioned earlier as the Hart Tribe. To understand how their story began, we head up north to the quiet, rarely spotlighted state of South Dakota. Tucked in the heart of mainland America, South Dakota is known for its wide open spaces, breathtaking prairies, and landmarks like Badlands National Park. It's the kind of place where people fish, hunt, and hike for fun, a peaceful contrast to the noise of city life. And in this calm and rural backdrop is where Jennifer Hart and Sarah Gangler first crossed paths. Jennifer was from Huron, and Sarah grew up near a tiny place called Big Stone City. And when we say tiny, we mean it. With a population of just about 500 people, it could barely fill a single passenger jet. Both Jennifer and Sarah had surprisingly similar upbringings. The oldest siblings and their families raised in rural towns, and both did well enough in high school to go on to college. They each dreamed of becoming school teachers, with Sarah focusing specifically on special education. By what seemed like coincidence or maybe fate, both women ended up transferring to Northern State University in Aberdeen, South Dakota. That was back in 1999, and neither of them could have guessed that what started as classmates would quickly grow into friendship and eventually a romantic relationship. But let's not forget, this was rural South Dakota in the late 90s, and being openly gay wasn't exactly easy, especially not when you've grown up in tight-knit traditional communities. So, Jennifer and Sarah kept their relationship a secret, telling friends and family they were just close pals. Eventually, Jennifer dropped out of college before finishing her course. But Sarah stuck it out and earned her degree in special education. After graduation, they both decided it was time to stop hiding. They came out publicly, and while they knew not everyone would accept them, they were ready. And sure enough, some friends walked away. But they stood by each other and decided to start fresh, moving to Alexandria, Minnesota, a charming city known for its lakes and calm lifestyle. Once settled in Alexandria, they both found work at the biggest department store in town. Sarah climbed the ranks to management, while Jennifer remained in the juniors section. Co-workers described Sarah as calm and reserved, while Jennifer was bold, brash, and sometimes hard to get along with. but together, they somehow balanced each other out like yin and yang, each one filling in the other's gaps. By their mid-20s, though, they both felt something was missing. Their routine had become too quiet, too predictable. That's when they decided to become foster parents, something that many see as a beautiful and meaningful way to grow a family and make a difference. They were young, educated, and employed. So they qualified. In 2014, they took in their first foster child, a 15-year-old girl named Lee. At first, it all seemed great. Jennifer and Sarah took Lee on trips, brought her to events, and tried to create lasting memories. They went camping, visited amusement parks. On the surface, it looked like a picture-perfect start. But only a few months later, cracks began to show. People around them started noticing that Jennifer and Sarah often complained about Lee, mocking her habits, attitude, and interests. They even told others that Lee had a habit of picking food from the trash, which said more about their judgment than about the child herself. The foster experience that started with such excitement quickly soured. Still, the couple pressed on, bringing in more children. Eventually, Lee found herself watching Jennifer and Sarah gush over photos of two new kids they plan to adopt, a younger brother and sister, and even talking about adopting a fourth child from a pregnant woman once the baby was born. But that excitement didn't include Lee. Just a week later, she was dropped off at what she thought was a normal therapist appointment, only to be told that Jennifer and Sarah weren't coming back. No goodbye, no explanation. They'd completely abandoned her. Just like that, she was out of their lives. By 2006, 2 years after sending Lee back into the foster care system, Jennifer and Sarah officially adopted 3 children, 2-year-old Abigail, 4-year-old Hannah, and 7-year-old Marcus. Statistically, these children were considered hard to place. Sadly, race still plays a big role in adoption rates, and all 3 were black siblings, which meant they had to be adopted together, something many families were unwilling or unable to do. But Jennifer and Sarah took them in, and on the outside, it looked like a beautiful act of compassion. Now, this is where Jennifer's heart really began. Curating the image of her so-called perfect family online. She started regularly posting on Facebook, documenting what she called their first night as a family of 5. But instead of warmth and sweetness, the night sounded chaotic, even alarming. She described incidents of urination, someone pooping on the walls, a child taking a tumble, and one even needing the Heimlich maneuver. It was wild, and while most parents would probably panic or keep something like that private, Jen shared it openly, almost like it was some quirky adventure. She wrote that the kids were difficult, misbehaved and deeply troubled, but insisted that she and Sarah were in it for the long haul. If not us, who will? She said, as if they were the last hope for these children. And while raising 3 traumatized children is undeniably tough, it didn't stop Jen and Sarah from applying to adopt even more. Just 2 years later, in the spring of 2008, their application was approved once again. This time, they were given 3 more children. 5-year-old Devonte, 4-year-old Jeremiah, and 3-year-old Sierra. With 6 adopted kids now in their care, all black children, and all from troubled backgrounds, the cracks in the family Dynamics started to show. Not long after the new additions arrived, things took a troubling turn. That same year, Hannah showed up to school with visible bruises on her legs. When her teacher asked what happened, Hannah said one of her mothers had hit her with a belt. But when Jen and Sarah were questioned, they brushed it off. They claimed ignorance and said, maybe Hannah got the bruises while playing. Shockingly, no charges were filed. But what happened next was even more suspicious. All three kids were pulled out of school just like that. It wasn't until social services were notified that the children were eventually re-enrolled. Still, the warning signs were growing louder. Despite all of this, Jen kept her social media active, carefully painting a rosy picture of their unconventional family. 2 white lesbian moms raising 6 beautiful black children. Sarah stayed working in retail, supporting them financially, while Jen became a full-time stay-at-home mom. But she wasn't just staying home. She took the kids on trips to what she called transformation festivals. These were multi-day events filled with music, dancing, yoga, and a kind of bohemian spiritual atmosphere. That lifestyle shift eventually led the family to leave Minnesota and moved to Oregon in 2013, drawn to a more accepting community and closer proximity to their favorite musicians and events. Not long after the move, Jen and Sarah officially tied the knot, with Sarah taking Jennifer's last name, Hart, along with the children. From that point forward, Jen's Facebook became a full-blown highlight reel. Post after post showed smiling kids and flower crowns, group hugs at festivals, gardening sessions, or artsy, candid shots around the house. Her captions were filled with talk of love, healing, community, and acceptance. The kind of content that Radian likes and shares. The public was enamored. People saw them as selfless heroes. 2 moms who had stepped up to save 6 children and were raising them in a peaceful, progressive bubble. It was a perfectly curated story and it worked. The world applauded. But behind those filtered moments and carefully chosen words was a reality that was anything but loving. Government reports and school records started telling a different story. Teachers had noticed bruises on the children. Some of them had even confided that they were locked in rooms or denied food at home. In fact, some of the kids resorted to stealing food from classmates just to get by. Abigail told one teacher that Jennifer had punished her by dunking her head in cold water, then slapping her across the face. Yet, every time something serious was reported, the Hart family seemed to slip through the cracks. And then, just like before, they removed the children from school entirely. This time, permanently, they claimed they were switching to homeschooling. It didn't stop there. Whistleblowers, neighbors, friends, even acquaintances started contacting Child Protective Services. Their reports were deeply disturbing. They said Jen ran the house like a strict boot camp. The children were terrified of her. One particularly dark claim was that Jen controlled food access, not just as punishment, but as leverage. She reportedly withheld meals unless the kids posed for happy, affectionate photos that she could post online. Photographers who worked with the family said the same thing. The kids would beam for the camera on cue, obedient and cheerful. But as soon as the camera was gone, the smiles vanished. The light in their eyes disappeared. The transformation was eerie, like someone flipping a switch. Now the CPS eventually got involved again and began interviewing the Hart children about their home life. You'd think this would be the turning point, right? But strangely, during these interviews, each child gave eerily similar answers, almost like they had been rehearsed. One by one, they all denied any abuse happening at home. No red flags, no cries for help, just calm, uniform responses that made it seem like everything was perfectly fine. But that's exactly what made it so unsettling. Then in the year 2014, Devontae Hart, one of Jen and Sarah's youngest adopted sons, became a viral sensation. His photo taken during a Black Lives Matter protest showed him tearfully hugging a white police officer while holding a free hug sign. The image tugged at people's hearts, became a symbol of hope, and quickly spread across the internet. Devontae was dubbed the boy who hugged a cop, and the story got so big that it was featured on national news outlets and even made its way to Saturday Night Live. Jen, who had always craved attention, basked in the public love. Her social media was filled with emotional captions and curated images of her family doing crafts, gardening, or attending rallies. The message was always the same: love, peace, healing, unity. It looked like the dream family. But by the time 2016 rolled around, Jen's Facebook suddenly went silent. No more posts, no more updates, just nothing. It wasn't until the following year, 2017, that Jen resurfaced online. But this time, her tone was different, defensive. She posted that people around them didn't understand their progressive alternative lifestyle. Behind those vague words though, something more strategic was happening. CPS was circling again. Investigations were heating up, and instead of facing it, Jen and Sarah packed up and moved quietly. No fanfare. No goodbye posts, just a silent escape to Woodland, Washington. There they found a large 2-story farmhouse out in the countryside. It was remote, peaceful, and most importantly, out of the spotlight. Jen restarted her Facebook again, trying to pick up where she left off. New posts, new family photos, the same old "we're living in love" narrative. But behind the filtered photos, the truth was unraveling fast. One night, in the middle of a warm July evening, something terrifying happened. 15-year-old Hannah Hart jumped out of her second-story bedroom window and ran barefoot to a neighbor's house, the home of Donna and Bruce Dalb. It was past 2 in the morning, and the couple was woken by frantic knocking. There was Hannah, scared, hungry, and begging not to be taken back home. The decals were shocked, and before long, the rest of the Hart family was outside calling for Hannah. When Jen finally got to their door, she coolly brushed it all off, saying Hannah was lying for attention. But Donna and Bruce didn't feel right about it. Something about Hannah's panic, her fear, just didn't sit well. The next day, Donna's daughter called the police. She told them, "There's some kids I feel are being highly abused." She described how Hannah jumped out of the window and begged to stay hidden, and how later the kids came back all lined up stiffly and repeating the same thing, that everything was fine. It was clear something wasn't. "Yeah, there's some kids that I feel is being highly abused. Okay, I'm going to give you the address of my daughter's house because it's right next door." "Okay, What's going on there? The other night, a little girl jumped out of the second-story window on the roof and then down onto the ground and ran to my daughter. And this is like 2 o'clock in the morning, begging them to help her. And when they came looking for her, she was begging my daughter not to let them know she was there. And then eventually my son-in-law let them know. And then she had all 4 of the kids come back later and to say everything was okay. And they're all standing at attention like they were just scared to death. And I think there's something very serious going on there. I'm very concerned for these kids. The very next day, the decals received a letter that was supposedly written by Hannah apologizing for her behavior, but the wording, it didn't sound like a 15-year-old. It was overly formal, rehearsed, almost like someone else had written it. Donna and Bruce didn't want drama with the neighbors, but now they were on alert. Donna started keeping a diary, noting everything she observed. The blinds in the Hart home were always closed. The kids looked thinner every time she saw them. They were never seen outside playing. It was like they were being hidden. And then came Devante. This time, the approach was quieter. He knocked on their door and calmly asked for food. He told them he was always hungry and asked if they could leave some snacks at the edge of the property, somewhere his parents wouldn't see. And in a heartbreaking moment, he quietly admitted that everything Hannah had said was true. He even asked them to contact social services. That was it. The decals called Child Services, and on March 23, 2018, CPS showed up at the Hart home to check in. But when they arrived, there was no answer, no movement. No one came to the door. They left a note and returned a few days later. But when they came back, things had taken a chilling turn. The driveway was completely empty. The family's SUV was gone. Debris and concrete blocks were scattered in front of the house. The Hart family had vanished without a trace. And for the first time, there were no poetic posts from Jen, no smiling photos, no hashtags about love, just silence. What investigators would find next was the horrifying result of the Hart family's SUV crashing through a small retaining wall and plummeting down a 100-foot cliff. It was clear from the scene that the family had left their home in a panic. Donna Dalb, the concerned neighbor who had already witnessed signs of abuse, couldn't shake the feeling that something was very, very wrong. She had known in her gut that the Harts were running. That much had been obvious, but no amount of suspicion could have prepared her for the grim truth that was about to unfold. Just 2 days before the crash, on the 24th of March, 2018, Jennifer and Sarah Hart loaded all 6 of their adopted children into their SUV. They told the kids they were going on a road trip. It wasn't unusual for the family to take unannounced trips, but this time felt different, rushed, urgent, almost desperate. Jennifer got behind the wheel and drove off in a hurry, even smashing through a small wall in the process, which would later become a disturbing piece of the puzzle. Unlike her usual social media fanfare, there were no cheerful posts or photo updates about this so-called road trip. But what there was, however, was a digital breadcrumb trail. Cell phone data pinged off several towers along the coastal highways as the family traveled south, leaving Washington, moving through Oregon, and eventually making their way into Northern California. Along the way, they made a brief stop at a service station to buy food. But the children never got out of the car. They remained hidden, quiet, invisible. On March 25, the day before CPS returned to find the Hart house eerily empty, a security camera caught footage of Jennifer at a Safeway grocery store. The next known stop was at a Walmart in California. There, Sarah bought a large bottle of Benadryl, a common allergy medication known for causing extreme drowsiness in high doses. After the purchase, Sarah returned to the SUV and prepared sandwiches for the children, carefully slipping doses of Benadryl into their food. 19-year-old Marcus was given the largest dose, around 20 pills. At the same time, Jennifer, who was not a regular drinker, began consuming several beers. It was deeply uncharacteristic behavior for her. But that day was clearly different. Once the kids had eaten, unknowingly drugged, Sarah and Jennifer got back into their seats. Jennifer was still behind the wheel, even after drinking, and Sarah, phone in hand, began searching for disturbing things like how much Benadryl would it take to kill a 13-pound woman and how long does it take to die from drowning in hypothermia. She even searched, does it hurt to die? After those searches, Sarah swallowed 42 pills of Benadryl herself. It's chilling to imagine what was going through her mind, whether she was terrified, numb, or just resigned to what was coming. In the early morning hours of March 26, the family left Walmart and continued their drive along the rugged coastline. Sometime after they arrived at a cliff near Westport, California, the children were still in the back seat, unbuckled, sedated, and barely conscious. The SUV stopped briefly near the edge of the cliff, just long enough for the final decision to be made. Then, without hesitation, Jennifer pressed her foot down on the gas pedal. The car shot forward, accelerated toward the edge, and flew off the 100-feet cliff, plunging toward the rocky ocean below at an estimated 90 miles per hour. At around 4:15 in the afternoon on that same day, officers were alerted to a vehicle wreckage spotted at the base of the cliff near Westport. When emergency crews arrived, they found the SUV upside down and partially submerged in seawater. Floating nearby were the lifeless bodies of Abigail, Jeremiah, and Marcus Hart. Once the vehicle was raised from the water, the remains of Jennifer and Sarah were also found. 5 members of the family were now confirmed dead. All of them had died from blunt force trauma caused by the impact. There was no mystery, no technical malfunction. No chance of it being a freak accident. The crash was deliberate. It was calculated. It was murder. The Hart SUV went from standing still to gas pedal floor as Jennifer Hart sat behind the wheel. Legally drunk. We have the vehicle going from 34% throttle to 100% throttle. And there's no subsequent application of the brake. As the investigation deepened, the missing children, Hannah, Sierra, and Devontae, became the center of desperate hope. Maybe they hadn't been in the car. Maybe they'd escaped. Maybe, just maybe, there was still a chance. Their faces were plastered on missing persons bulletins, news reports, and community boards. But hope quickly dwindled. Just 2 weeks after the crash, Sierra's body was discovered, floating in the water near the crash site. And 2 months later, a small human foot washed ashore and was confirmed through DNA testing to belong to Hannah Hart. To this day, Devontae's body has never been recovered. Authorities believe the ocean likely claimed him, pulling him out to sea forever. In the early hours after the crash, some investigators still held on to the theory that maybe this was some tragic accident, that perhaps Jennifer fell asleep at the wheel or the brakes gave out. But all evidence told a different story. There were no skid marks near the edge of the cliff. No signs that anyone attempted to brake or swerve. The vehicle's black box, its onboard computer, confirmed this. It showed the SUV coming to a brief stop, then accelerating rapidly off the cliff's edge. It was not an accident. It was intentional. It was final. When authorities searched the Hart home, what they found was haunting. There were no signs that children had lived there. No toys, no books, no signs of laughter or life. The picture frames on the wall were all empty. Inside, it was cold, sterile, and devoid of joy. Autopsies revealed that nearly all the children were severely underweight. Despite being teenagers, their bodies were the size of much younger kids, some equivalent to a toddler's weight. They had been starved, both physically and emotionally. The smiling photos Jennifer had shared online were staged. The happy captions were lies, and the story of a loving alternative family was nothing more than a polished social media-ready fantasy. In the end, Jennifer and Sarah Hart weren't the selfless heroes they wanted the world to see. They weren't brave mothers or progressive role models. They were manipulative, controlling, and terrified of being exposed. Rather than face the consequences of their actions, rather than risk losing control over the children they so desperately wanted to display like trophies, they chose the unthinkable. They murdered 6 innocent children to protect their own fragile egos and twisted reputations. It's sickening. It's heartbreaking. And worst of all, it was entirely preventable. We'll never truly know why Jennifer and Sarah did what they did. Maybe they were overwhelmed, drowning in debt, exhausted by the responsibilities of raising 6 adopted children. But even if that were true, it doesn't justify this. They had options. They had time. They had a choice. And they chose a death, not just for themselves, but for the very children they were supposed to protect. The system failed them. The state failed them. CPS didn't act fast enough despite repeated warnings. And ultimately 6 young lives were stolen in one of the most senseless and chilling crimes in modern American history. These children, Abigail, Hannah, Marcus, Sierra, Jeremiah, and Devontae, deserved better. They were already dealt a hard hand in life. Born into circumstances that required intervention. And instead of finding the healing and safety they needed, they ended up in the hands of 2 women who saw them as props for internet fame. They were neglected, abused, isolated, and ultimately discarded in the most violent way imaginable. This wasn't just a failure of parenting. It was a failure of humanity, of oversight, of compassion. It's impossible to find a silver lining in this story. There is no twist ending or lesson that makes it okay. The only thing we can do is remember these children, speak their names, and keep telling their story so that something like this never happens again. Let their lives remind us that we need to do better as neighbors, as communities, as a system. And let us never forget that beneath the smiles and hashtags were real kids with real dreams silenced. forever. As the rain gently falls and the night grows deeper, thank you for joining me here at Mr. Night Scared. True crime stories remind us of life's mysteries and the importance of staying aware even as we seek comfort in the quiet of the night. Let the rain carry you to a peaceful sleep. And until we meet again, stay safe, stay curious, and let the night watch over you.